Let's get this shit started.
This is the Down and Dirty Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast with your host, Nick Anderson.
What is up, Dynasty Degenerates? This is your host, Nick Anderson, with the Down and Dirty Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast, or as y'all know it, the Triple DFFP. And you guys, I had to get out of the studio tonight, okay? It's been a while since I've recorded. I've been busy. I've got a lot of stuff going on, and I just had to break away from the studio, get out into the garage, do some garage drinking, some garage podcasting. And so we're out here. I think it looks all right. I got my drill press in the background. I got my bush light at my side. So we're sitting here, we're chilling, and we're going to be going over week 4, primarily the Thursday night football game, in the NFL. So let's first off give a recap and give a shout out to my Kansas City Chiefs. You can't see the new table that I've got down here. Tomahawk chopping. Man, we look good against them Ravens in week 3, y'all. I mean, I got to be honest. I was having doubts about what Kansas City was going to be able to do against this high-flying Ravens offense and the stout Ravens defense, but we came through in flying colors, and Patrick Mahomes looked like the Patrick Mahomes that we all know and love. He's got a kid on the way. It's going to be the anointed one in Kansas City, so we are excited for him and his family. We're excited for Chiefs Kingdom, and we're excited to bring home a win in week 3. Let's keep it rolling, baby. So before we get into everything, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about what I got going on right now. There are a couple new shows that I'm watching that I want to pass on to you guys if you haven't started watching them yet, because I like to bring you a little bit of culture, a little bit of things that I watch on the side, So the 3 shows that I'm watching right now are The Boys, Jack Ryan, and Spartacus. I've watched Spartacus before, but I had to watch it back through because it's so damn good. But I just started watching The Boys and Jack Ryan, and holy shit, y'all ain't watching it, you should. So that's my TV recommendation, for week 4 of the NFL. Get on that shit. All right. So let's just get into week 4. Now, the one big thing that I've been getting a bunch of questions about this week, is what do we do about the Tennessee and Pittsburgh game? And it's a question that I've had to ask myself too, because y'all, we're in uncharted territory right now. With this COVID, and having to reschedule games, possibly having Tuesday night games, it begs the question, what do you do? And if it were me, if I was a contending team and I needed to compete and I was in a game, that's going to be a close game, I would err on the side of caution. You guys know that I'm the biggest Ryan Tannehill fan. But if I had Tanny, I would bench him right now, even in a 2 QB league for somebody else. That's why you always roster 3 quarterbacks in a 2 QB league. So I would be benching Tannehill. I'd be benching Corey Davis. I'd be benching Jonnu Smith. I'd be benching Derrick Henry if I had the option. Now, if I don't have the option, you got to roll out what you got. I would rather take a shot on Derrick Henry, on a Tuesday night game, or maybe not a game at all, than start somebody like, I don't even know how low we'd go on this one. But if it were Zach Moss or Derrick Henry, I'd take the shot on Derrick Henry. You guys have just got to make your best judgment, the risk/reward on it. If you've got a suitable replacement, though, go with the suitable replacement on that one. That's what I'm saying about that. And the same thing goes for the Pittsburgh players, James Conner, Ben Roethlisberger, Juju, Deontay, all of those guys. If you have a suitable replacement for those players, plug them in, err on the side of caution. Now, the one thing that I will tell you about this game, the one thing that I will tell you about a week like this, and it's a little bit dirty, it's a little bit shady, but if you are a rebuilding team and, you are trying to kind of tank it for Trevor or something like that, tank it for Travis Etienne next year, and you're trying to get that number 1 pick, there is nothing that says that you can't make an honest-to-God mistake and start all of your Tennessee Titans, all of your Pittsburgh Steelers, and then maybe have the chance of the game not happening and lose the week. You guys need to talk about it in your league, what's going to happen if something like that goes down. But if you're trying to tank, this might be the time to roll all them boys out. And I mean all them boys. Try and get you a week that you can honest to God say that you put in your best roster, but it just didn't pan out. So that's my advice about Tennessee versus Pittsburgh. If I'm a winning team, if I'm in title contention, then I'd be erring on the side of caution. If I have somebody to start, but it's a risk reward scenario, and you need to figure out if the person that you'd be starting is worth the low floor as opposed to the risk and high floor of the person that you'd be benching. But let's move on from that. So that's my opinion on the possible Tuesday night football game. But let's move on to the Thursday night football game. We got kind of a clunker on our hands, y'all. And I think you guys all know that. We've got the Jets versus the Broncos. And holy shit, the Broncos have been hit hard. And the Jets are just the Jets. The Jets are the Adam Gase Jets, the Adam Gase death rattle Jets. And you guys, I don't know. I don't think he should, but he might still. But I don't know if he has a job after this week if the Jets lose. But I'm not going to say that they're going to lose because this quarterback that the Broncos are rolling out there right now, I don't think he'll make it out of the first quarter. I think Driscoll will end up in the game. But the quarterback that the Broncos are rolling out right now is not somebody that I'm excited about. And so for those reasons, when we look at the Thursday night football game, you can roll out Judy, you can roll out Fant, and you can roll out Melvin Gordon. Of those guys, I think I'd probably be most excited about Melvin Gordon, which is something that I haven't said all season because I don't like him. I don't think that he's as good as he's been made out to be. And I think that once Philip Lindsay's fully healthy, he is going to cause him fucking nightmares all season long. But with, this third string quarterback that we've got in right now, I think they're going to have to rely heavily, early and often on Melvin Gordon. And so I think that's something that we're going to see out there on the field. Another thing is I think that we can maybe rely on Noah Fant as a low-end tight end one because this kind of poor quarterback play is going to be looking for those dump-offs, going to be looking for those outs. And that's what Noah Fant can provide you as a safety blanket. Now, I'd be starting Jerry Jeudy as a wide receiver 3, I wouldn't expect huge numbers from him. But the one thing that we do have to consider about the Broncos game is that we always see this. We always see this. And I mean, to an extent, it's something that we saw with Justin Herbert coming in week 2, is that when you don't have tape on a quarterback, he always tends to surprise the defenses. And the Jets defense is not that great of a defense to begin with. But when you don't have tape on a quarterback, it doesn't give the defense something to scheme off of. So they don't know what to expect. So he could just pop off and have a decent day because we've seen it happen time and time again. I mean, shit, we saw it happen, when Nick Mullins came in for the 49ers the last time that he was playing for him. When Jimmy G got hurt, I think it was in 2018. We saw that happen, okay? And so, I mean, the first-time quarterbacks that they don't have tape on sometimes pop off, but I wouldn't be counting on it with a third-string quarterback. So Jerry Jeudy be a wide receiver 3 at best for me. Noah Fant could be a sneaky tight end 1 because he is that safety blanket. And Melvin Gordon, I'm calling him, a mid-high end RB2 because I think that they're going to have to rely on him early and often in this game. And it makes me sick to my stomach to have to say that about Melvin Gordon, but that's where he's at. So we switch over to the other side of the ball. We've got the Jets. We've got the Jets with my boy, Sam Darnold. My love affair, Sam Darnold. Younger than Joe Burrow. Sam Darnold. On pace for more passing yards than Kyler Murray last year. Sam Darnold. Please, God, get Gase out of there. Please, God, get him out of New York so that we can see Sam Darnold come to fruition. Please, God, get Denzel Mims healthy so that we can get him a wide receiver option along with Jamison Crowder. Good Lord, man. Just give this kid some kind of weapon, But, he doesn't have it right now. But he's got Chris Herndon. He's got Braxton Berrios. And that's about it out there. So, I mean, those are the only 2 options. I mean, Braxton Berrios has actually had a low-key decent season. He's had 2 touchdowns this year so far. So I would count him in the same Jerry Jeudy category in this Thursday night football matchup. Berrios has put up 10 receptions for 123 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns this year. So, I mean, in a game where, you've got a semi-depleted Denver defense, you've got Sam Darnold throwing in the ball, and you've got basically no other receiving weapons out there. I think Braxton Berrios could be an easy wide receiver 3 target this year. So this week. So if I had no other options, I would think about starting him. If it was, we were talking about this earlier with the Tennessee game. If it was Corey Davis or Braxton Berrios, I'd be starting Braxton Berrios over Corey Davis right now. Even though I think that Corey Davis could have a better week, I'd be starting Braxton Berrios because, the points after replacement I don't think are that significant between the two. The risk and the reward are better for a Braxton Berrios than they are for a Corey Davis, who might not have a game. We don't know. We don't know what COVID positive test could pop up. So, I see Braxton Berrios as being definitely an odd, but a wide receiver 3 nonetheless. And Chris Herndon could be a flyer tight end too. You never know. I mean, like I said, Sam Darnold could always pop off. He has good games. He shows great talent at certain times. So, I mean, Chris Herndon could be a flyer tight end too if you got to start him. But I wouldn't be starting him, and I would be starting neither of these quarterbacks unless you are absolutely dog shit desperate in a 2 QB league. So that's what I got for Thursday Night Football. Those are my takes. Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver 3 candidate. Noah Fant, low end tight end 1. Melvin Gordon, RB2 candidate, maybe high end RB2. Then on the Jets side, we've got Chris Herndon as a tight end 2 flyer and Braxton Berrios as a wide receiver 3. So that's what we got for Thursday Night Football. So, we're just trucking through this stuff. We got Tuesday Night Football and Thursday Night Football taken care of. But now let's go into, we're 3 weeks into the season. So we've gotten to see a little bit of what these players have to offer, what the landscape for the rest of the year is going to look like and beyond. So we need to be talking now about who is our buys and who are our sells, who we think we should be trying to get rid of preemptively, and who we should be trying to buy before they reach their pinnacle. And so when we're looking at dynasty buys, the first one that comes to mind for me is T. Higgins, guys. He started over a healthy scratch John Ross last week. And I've been a John Ross believer, mostly because I drafted him his rookie season. I didn't want to be made the fool. But, T. Higgins has proven that he is building a rapport with Joe Burrow, that he has the ability. And so far this season, he's had 8 receptions for 75 yards and 2 TDs. So not only is he showing a rapport, is he showing skill, but he's also showing that red zone prowess that we wanted from that big body T. Higgins wide receiver right there. We've seen an obscene number of targets go to AJ Green, 13 a game, shit like that. And what's going to happen next year? Are they going to re-sign AJ Green? Because he's done at the end of this year, So, if he's gone, think about the prospect of T. Higgins getting 13 targets a game from a year 2 Joe Burrow that has already shown us everything that we want to see from a rookie quarterback. He has looked every bit the consummate professional that we hoped that he would be coming into the NFL. And so I'm excited about the prospect of T. Higgins. I think that buying him right now is the absolute move that you want to make. And I honestly think, that he could be had in a package deal for less than you would anticipate. If you bundle him in, you're not going to get him for a second right now, I don't think. If you get a pick-hungry team, you might be able to, but it's doubtful because they paid a high second for him. But I don't know if I'm willing to pay a first for him. I might be, judging by the way that Joe Burrow has played, judging by the target distribution and the lack thereof in 2021. I think that T. Higgins is going to be exponentially more valuable. So I think that a first, a 2021 first might be the price that's accurate for him, but I'd be looking to package him into a deal. Try and get something where you dish off an aging veteran and acquire a young stud in T. Higgins. So that's my number 1 dynasty buy right now is T. Higgins. Across the board, be looking for him because the sky is the limit. And I think that it's not just going to happen in 2021. It's going to happen at the tail end of 2020. We're only scratching the surface with what Joe Burrow's talent is, and we're only scratching the surface with the rapport that he's going to build with T. Higgins. So my next dynasty buy, you guys have heard me talk about him time and time again, is Adam Troutman. He's already getting work, guys. He's already getting targets, and I understand that Michael Thomas is out. And so that's probably a huge product of why he's already getting looks. But as a rookie tight end with Jared Cook in front of him, you got Emmanuel Sanders out there on the field. You got Traquan Smith. You got Alvin Kamara out of the backfield. But he's already seen 3 targets for 34 yards, and he's looked good while he's out there on the field. And you guys, Jared Cook has succeeded in 8 in New Orleans, and I think that Adam Troutman is going to be the continuation of that in 2021, and I think his role is only going to grow. Today, personally, I made a trade. I am in an orphan league. tight end premium, 2 QB. I just picked this league up in the offseason this year, and I'm trying to get rid of some of these old guys that I think. And, Leonard Fournette, who I'm going to be talking about right now, isn't necessarily old, but I think that he finds himself in a situation where he has a very uncertain future in the NFL. And so I dished out Leonard Fournette to acquire Adam Troutman and a 21 second in a tight end premium league. And I could not be happier about it because I think the sky's the limit for Adam Troutman. Just keep an eye on this kid because I'm telling you, everything that I saw at the combine, his blocking drills, his catching drills, everything that I saw on film from him out of Dayton, he is the real deal, and he's going to fucking impress, y'all. So let's go on to my next dynasty buy. My next dynasty buy, I feel like I'm just kind of going over my names of rookies right now. They're always going to be my buys. But my next dynasty buy is Denzel Mims. We have not gotten to see what he has to offer yet, but we have gotten to see what a guy like Braxton Berrios can get from Sam Darnold, 123 yards and 2 TDs in the first 3 games, but really only the first 2 games because I don't think he got any action in the first game. So we start cross-applying that to a guy with the skill set, the athleticism, the sticky hands of Denzel Mims. Whew, I'm excited about that prospect, y'all. And so because we haven't seen anything out of Denzel Mims yet, because he's been on the IR, his price is dropping and dropping and dropping. You might be able to get him somewhere for a 21 second. Maybe throw in a third in there, 21 second and a 21 third. If you get somebody that's already getting frustrated because owners do that. If you get somebody that's already getting frustrated with a lack of production, not seeing their guy on the field, if that happens, you can make that trade happen. And I would be looking all over the place in every league that I'm in for shares of Denzel Mims because I'm telling you, once he hits the field, he's going to hit the field hard, and that's going to impress once he gets over his double fucking hamstring injuries. Who has that happen? Both hamstrings? Get the fuck out of my face with that, Denzel. Get on the field, bro. Then my next dynasty buy, I know it's going to be a controversial one because nobody likes what he has been putting out there right now. But my next dynasty buy is Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon has had a rough start to the season, but it's also been a product of rough blocking up front. Okay. And I will say that it's also a product of Joe Mixon. He has seemed to not want to play. He has seemed to want to be lethargic and lacks effort when he runs. I mean, there's a clear difference between Gio running the ball and Joe Mixon running the ball in 2020. Gio just looks like he wants it. Joe Mixon doesn't look like he wants it right now. But what I will say is Joe Mixon finished half-point PPR as the running back 13 last season. Coming into 2020, we were excited about the prospect of what he could bring to the table, okay? I think we're going to see a continuation of what we had happen last year, and it's actually not 2020 that's going to be the year that he pops. It's going to be 2021, and we've seen that he got paid the money, y'all, so he's in this offense. And he's in this offense with Joe Burrow, with Tyler Boyd, with T. Higgins, with Drew Sample, my boy right there. This offense is going in the right direction, and with their picks in 2021, they're not going to make the same moves that they made in 2020 where they spent early capital on T. Higgins and on Joe Burrow. They're going to front load the offensive line. They're going to get him the weapons that he needs. Just watch and wait. It's going to happen. It's the spots that they need filled. So I think that this line is going to get a lot better in 2021, and I think that Joe Mixon is going to benefit from it. But even if he doesn't, let's look at this. Everybody's so down on Joe Mixon this year. In the first 3 games, he's had 52 carries for 164 yards with 0 touchdowns and 7 receptions for 58 yards and 0 touchdowns. That's in comparison to his RB13 season in 2019, where he started the first 3 games. Now, I mean, it's amazing how this stuff fades from memory, but his first 3 games last year, he had 32 carries for 87 yards and 0 touchdowns, 10 receptions for 51 yards and 1 touchdown. The difference in that is that he hit pay dirt in the end zone 1 time that year in the first 3 games, and he hasn't done that yet in 2020. But that's going to come. It's going to come, and the usage is already there. He's got 52 carries this season in comparison to 32 carries last year. He's got almost double the rushing yards in the first 3 games than he did last season. He has 7 more receiving yards than he did last season. Joe Mixon is on the uptick. We just don't realize it yet. And once he gets his head out of his ass and starts working hard, we all know that Mixon's a second half of the year kind of player. he's going to pop off again, and it's going to happen, especially when Joe Burrow becomes more potent in this passing attack. And so buy low right now. I'm sending out offers all over the place for whatever I can get on Joe Mixon, because right now is the time to be able to capitalize on his lackluster performance. So let's move on to my next dynasty buy. My next dynasty buy is a guy that I think the sky's the limit for as well. He is an incredible rusher, has all the skill in the world, but he finds himself behind a running back who's seasoned in Adrian Peterson. And so my buy is DeAndre Swift. Adrian Peterson is defying father time, spitting in his face, being on pace for 1,000-yard season at 35 years old. Who does he think he is? Frank Gore? Good Lord. But DeAndre Swift, while he hasn't had the performances that we'd like, he has 8 carries for 20 yards and 1 touchdown, which isn't great. But, when you only have 8 carries, when you have that low sample size, it can either be a huge number, it can be a low number, but none of it is indicative of his ability at this point. But what is indicative of his ability is the 9 receptions for 94 receiving yards. Because what people forget is that DeAndre Swift is one of the most pure pass catchers in this draft. Go watch videos of him in training camp or training on the side. The guy has fucking hands. DeAndre Swift is gonna be a top 10 dynasty running back in this league, but right now he's not being seen as that because he's getting beat out by Adrian Peterson. So you guys need to be buying right now on DeAndre Swift to see what you can get for him, I mean, if you can get somebody to bite on a first, even though they paid a first for him, you never fucking know. Send it out there. If you can send, a James Robinson who's been blowing up and we're going to talk about in the cells. If you can send a James Robinson and a third right now for DeAndre Swift, jump all over that, because you've got to follow the talent. And I like what James Robinson is doing, but he's not DeAndre Swift. He's not DeAndre Swift on his best day, So be out there buying DeAndre Swift. Another one, a sneaky one right now that I'm buying, is Robert Tonyan in Green Bay, the tight end out there, you guys. I got to be honest, I was a big fan of Jay Sternberger. I have a lot of shares of him. I was hoping that he was going to pop off. But all indicators, especially people were telling me this coming into this season, all indicators for training camp was that Robert Tonyan was impressing in training camp, and he's shown nothing to contradict those statements this season. He has 7 receptions for 75 yards and 2 TDs, and he's looked great out there. And the one thing that we've seen is that if Aaron Rodgers trusts you, he feeds you the ball. And he's starting to trust Robert Tonyan more and more and more as the year goes on. And so I think actually this week and going forward, he's going to start to get more targets. Expect big things out of him this week. I'm really excited about the high-flying affair between the Packers and the Falcons. We'll talk more about that later. But I think that this could really be a turning point for Tonyan. Now, my next dynasty buy is another guy that's kind of, he's found himself as the backup in his, or not the backup, but the secondary weapon in his passing attack, and it's DJ Moore, you guys. DJ Moore is elite, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Don't let Robbie Anderson's flashy first 3 weeks fool you. I understand that he got away from the clutches of Adam Gase's grip, and now he's emerged like a butterfly erupting from his cocoon, but he's not DJ Moore. He's not as good as DJ Moore, and he never will be. Teddy Bridgewater isn't the permanent solution in Carolina, and there will be better days on the horizon for DJ Moore. And he's already had 14 receptions for 239 yards on this season. He's going to hit pay dirt a couple more times. I'm not saying that he's going to have this big spike in touchdowns because it's not DJ Moore's game, but he is going to get peppered with more and more targets. So I trust DJ Moore. I trust his talent, and I trust that he is going to be on the uptick. So buy low right now while everybody thinks that Robbie Anderson has taken the mantle as the wide receiver 1 out in Carolina. And my final dynasty buy is my fucking guy, Laviska Shenault, y'all. We've already seen he's been getting some carries out of the backfield because he is that dynamic, and he's got 11 receptions for 105 receiving yards and a touchdown. I'm telling you, Keelan Cole is an aberration. Keelan Cole is not the guy. Keelan Cole is just getting the love right there while DJ Chark has been hobbled a little bit. And once DJ Chark comes back in, Laviska Shenault is going to take the mantle of the wide receiver 2 out there and run with it. And Keelan Cole is not going to be able to compete with him. I'm excited about Laviska Shenault's ability to be a dynamic playmaker, both out of the backfield and in the receiving game. And everything that we see, he's not getting targeted enough. His hands are sticky. He has the ability to break away from tackles. His yards after catch, yards after contact are incredible. The guy is, the next evolution of a Deebo Samuel. He's the next coming of a Deebo Samuel, but somebody that I think even has the ability to raise to higher heights than that. I am wildly excited about Laviska Shenault. And if you guys can get him for anything that you can get him for right now, go out there and buy him. I'm trying to think. I would borderline pay a first for Laviska Shenault right now. I talked about T. Higgins and maybe not paying a first for him. I would pay a first for both of them. If I had a first to be able to give away and I didn't need the picks to make a crazy rebuild, I would be buying T. Higgins and Laviska Shenault because I'm that fucking high on the guys. So let's go on. Those are my dynasty buys right now after 3 weeks. Those are the guys that I think have had a little bit of a lackluster performance or have not had the huge games yet that I think that can be bought for cheaper than they will be in the next coming 6 weeks, So get in while the floor is low and just wait for the stock to rise. But my dynasty sells right now. My dynasty sells are guys that maybe haven't performed as well as you would want them to perform, but still have name value. And then some guys that are just kicking their coverage right now. So my first one is going to be Amari Cooper, and I've been talking about him as a dynasty sell. Michael Gallup is going to have his games. Yeah, Michael Gallup has had a little bit of a slow start, but if you notice, he's only wide receiver 21 to Amari Cooper's wide receiver 17. And CeeDee Lamb has shown himself as the clear and unquestionable alpha in Dallas. So while CeeDee Lamb is rising to those heights, Michael Gallup is still sitting there, and Amari Cooper finds himself, just above Michael Gallup, but he's not going to be above CeeDee Lamb come the end of the year. And you guys need to get out right now while the idea is that Amari Cooper is still the wide receiver 1 in Dallas, because it's not going to be like that for long. So get out on Amari right now. If you can get a first for him, that's fantastic. That's what I would be looking for a guy like Amari Cooper, is a mid to early first, but don't pigeonhole yourself into listening to the mid to early. I'd be looking for a first. If you can get more from that, or if you can get a player packaged in, that's ideal. A first is the lowest that I'd be willing to take for him. I'd be looking to get a player and a pick, a first and a guy, or a first and a second for Amari Cooper. The next person that I'm looking to sell is James Robinson, who comes in as the RB5, y'all. RB5. James Robinson. Who would have fucking thunk it? Nobody. I'll tell you that right now. Nobody would have fucking thunk it. But James Robinson comes in at the RB5, and I'm not saying that you need to be in a hurry to get rid of him, because I don't see his production dipping. But what I am saying is that if you can get rid of James Robinson for a guy like DeAndre Swift, you need to do that. Because James Robinson, in my opinion, unless he is the next coming of Chris Carson, where he is the guy that just completely stays around, even though, he has low draft capital to no draft capital like James Robinson. But, it's very few and far between that those players do shit like that. And so I would be looking to get rid of the 1-year rental of James Robinson on the Jags for a guy that has a more substantial future, like a DeAndre Swift or a J.K. Dobbins. Package Robinson with a pick to be able to go get, J.K. Dobbins or DeAndre Swift. That's what I'd be looking for. Capitalize on this RB5 performance and make a move. The next guy on my list is going to be Myles Gaskin. He's much in the same. He's RB26, but he's performed really well in the last 2 games this year. Myles Gaskin, if you can get a second for Myles Gaskin, I'd be capitalizing on it all day. I'd be jumping all over it. A second. I'd be looking for a second and a third, but I'd take a second from Myles Gaskin. Then we go down to James Conner, running back 14. You guys, James Conner is not long for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think that he's going to get a contract extension. And when Anthony McFarland got in last week, I've been telling you, Anthony McFarland is dynamic. He has more power than you would think for his size. He has hands. He has elusiveness, explosion, spins, jump cuts, everything that you could want from a player, Anthony McFarland has. And the more he gets on the field, the more it's going to affect James Conner's stock, and the more it's going to remind, Tomlin that he cannot keep James Conner, that he's going to have to move on to somebody else. So capitalize on James Conner's running back 14 standing right now. and move him. I'd be trying to get a first for him. That would be my goal, is to get a first for James Conner or to get a young player in return. If I could trade James Conner for one of my dynasty buys right now, like T. Higgins or Laviska Shenault, I'd be doing it. If I could swap those guys out, I'd be making that move right now. I know it's going to rub some people the wrong way, but that's something that I would be doing, trying to get out early on James Conner with this early season boon at running back 14. Another one that I'd be trying to get out on is Darrell Henderson, or Darrell Henderson, I'm sorry. Running back 19 on the season, mostly predicated off the last 2 weeks. And I think that as long as we see the broken finger from Malcolm Brown, as long as we see the rib injury from Cam Akers persist, Darrell Henderson has that backfield and he's going to produce because the Sean McVay offense produces with their running backs, So he's producing right now, but he's not going to be producing for the foreseeable future. Cam Akers is the show in town, and he will take over that backfield at some point. So you need to be trying to get out on Darrell Henderson right now. I would be looking to get a second and a third for him. That's what I'm trying to get right now. Second and a third for him all day long. And my final one is Todd Gurley. I know we want a bunch of running backs right now, but a lot of these running backs are easy to turn. People are looking for running backs, especially in a year where you saw Saquon go down, where you see Christian McCaffrey on the IR. You get those top tier guys. You see Austin Eckler. He had a great performance last week, but he's had lackluster performances. And another one that I want to say is a buy is fucking Josh Kelly. I've been talking about Josh Kelly all fucking off season. I was telling you about how he's the second coming of Sony Michel in the absolute best way possible, about how, he's a jack of all trades, king of none, but a jack of all trades. And then you go and look, and he's got great carries. He's got a ton of yards. He's produced when he's running the ball. Go buy Josh Kelly. Go buy him and get rid of Darrell Henderson. Get rid of Todd Gurley. Get rid of James Conner, Myles Gaskin, James Robinson. Get rid of all those guys. But most importantly, get rid of Todd Gurley because he looks like a shell of himself running out there. And the only thing that he has going for him right now is that there's still the belief that he's the only show in town. Even though Brian Hill and, everybody else out there, Ito Smith has been getting work. Go sell Todd Gurley. Go get rid of him. Be looking to get a second for him. Honestly, second, third. Same for Darrell Henderson. Be looking to get a second and a third for both of them. Package them together. That's what I've been trying to do. I got them on the same team on my orphan. Package them together. Sell them for a first and a third. Fun math right there. 2 seconds and 2/3 equal a first and a third. Get rid of those guys. Get rid of the guys that you see with the drop-off. And Todd Gurley has a steep drop-off from running back 23 coming because I don't see him finishing the season over running back 30. That's where it's at. But let's move on. Those are our dynasty buys and sells for week 4 moving forward, okay? But let's move on to the last section of this episode, and it's going to be our fantasy game of the week. Our fantasy game of the week is going to come on Monday for us, you guys. So we're going to have a banger, a shootout on Monday Night Football, and it's the Falcons versus the Packers. And I'm excited for this game. I mean, Rodgers is on an absolute tear right now. I'm expecting him to get at least 3 touchdowns. I honestly think that Rodgers and Ryan are going to be in the top 5 quarterbacks this week out of this matchup. So start both of them with ease. I mean, put them in. You were putting them in anyway, but put them in with ease and be happy that you get the chance to start them. From the Packers side, Jones, he's going to wreck. He keeps wrecking, man. Aaron Jones was the biggest steal this offseason in redraft and dynasty alike. I hate A.J. Dillon, and he's doing exactly what I thought that he was going to do, except even less. I thought A.J. Dillon was going to vulture shit at the goal line, but he's not because Aaron Jones is a formidable opponent. He can't be stopped. So expect him to get over 80 rushing yards this week. Expect him to get over 60 receiving yards. Expect him to have at least 1 touchdown, probably 2. Then we move on to the other guys in this matchup. Devontae Adams, he's questionable for this week. If he starts, though, there are just some guys that that I'm playing. His rapport with Aaron Rodgers is second to none. His target share is second to none. If he plays, I'm expecting 75 yards plus and a touchdown. But I'm also expecting similar numbers for Lazard. I mean, that play where he tripped and still caught the ball and landed on the 2-yard line, I think. Man, oh my God, that was poetry in motion, dude. This guy's proven himself to be a real freaking asset right now. And I don't think that it's the time to buy because he's performing too well, but I want him on all my fucking teams because he's that good. And then again, I said Robert Tonyan. He's another guy that I want this week. I would be starting him in a tight end premium league if I thought I'd be starting him as a high upside running back or wide or tight end too. As a high upside tight end too. I would be starting Tonyan this week because I think that he's going to get a touchdown and I think he's going to get over 50 receiving yards. But then we move on. We'll move on to the Falcons side of the ball. And like I said, expect Matt Ryan to be a top 5 quarterback this week. You were starting him anyway, so don't worry. Calvin Ridley, same verse, same as the first. The guy, I have to take an L on this because I've always been a Calvin Ridley fan. I've always been a fan of his route running, his ability to cut on a dime, the way he looks like a fucking panther out there, the way he moves. But I did not see this meteoric rise that he has had, usurping Julio Jones as the wide receiver 1 in Atlanta. But he's done it, man. He's done it. He's done it to a T. And so I start him automatically, wide receiver 1 this week. No doubts about it. Julio Jones, we're unsure about his injury right now. We don't know what to expect going into week 4. Julio Jones has consistently played with lower body injuries, though. And so it would be something to keep a strong eye on. But if he does play, you got to start him up. I know that he's let you down some weeks, but I don't think that we're going to have Russell Gage in this week because of the concussion that he incurred last, in week 3. I don't think he's going to play. It's hard to come back through that concussion protocol in 1 week, especially when you sustain one, on Sunday. So I would not be expecting him to play in week 4. So if Julio Jones plays, you got to start him up because it's Julio. And then the last person that I'm really, really excited about in this matchup is Hayden Hurst. I've wrote articles for the nerds about it. I've said I love Hayden Hurst. I am a huge fan of his. And we saw that touchdown play of his, go to pay dirt. I think that he has the upside, especially if we start to see some of the target shares going in his way, to be, a mid tight end 1. And I think that's what we should expect from him, especially if we see Russell Gage out, on Monday Night Football. Hayden Hurst stepping in as a mid tight end 1. That's what I'm calling for right there. And then if you were ever looking to sell Todd Gurley, you can put out feelers right now, but this week might be profitable for him because they're going to need to keep scoring points and they're going to need to predicate the run or get the run going to be able to get the passing attack going. So expect a little bit more peppering to Todd Gurley out of the backfield this week. So be looking to sell him right now, but also be holding on and thinking about next week. After he may pop off this week, I'm expecting, maybe mid-wide running back 2 numbers from Todd Gurley. And so that's my fantasy game of the week is Monday Night Football between the Falcons and the Packers. Those are my dynasty buys, my dynasty sells, my Thursday Night Football breakdown and what to do when you're playing or when you're looking at the Tennessee and Pittsburgh game. A couple other questions that I had on the Twitter are, what should I do with James Robinson? I told you what to do with James Robinson. What should I do with Joe Mixon? I told you what to do with Joe Mixon. I had a question about the Tennessee-Pittsburgh game. I gave you the answer to that. So all answers have been revealed in the podcast. I have imparted all the wisdom that I can. You guys, if you have any start-sit questions, any trade questions, feel free to hit me up at DFFP on Twitter. I like to answer everything that gets thrown at me, or you can send me a DM if you don't want to put it out on the Twitter sphere. I'm excited to hear from you guys. I love hearing from you guys. Thank you for watching the show. Like, share, and subscribe down below for more content just like this. I hope you guys like my takes, but if you don't, fuck it, man, because I'm drunk.